Good morning. My name is Janie Montblanc, and on behalf of the Great Basin Fire Science Exchange team and our partners, I would like to welcome you to this webinar titled Procurement and Application of Native Plant Material in the Bureau of Land Management, presented by Scott Uhrig for Paul Krabacher, who is the BLM National Seed Coordinator. Before I introduce our speaker, I want to let you know that you may ask questions of the speaker or me at any time during the webinar by typing them into the questions pane of your control panel at the top right of your screen. I will keep questions for the presenter in the queue and field them after the presentation. I also want to let you know that whatever you do in your control panel does not affect the webinar presentation, so you're welcome to type a test message or test your audio at any time during the webinar. Also, if you're having problems with your audio, please open your audio pane and check your audio option selections. Now I would like to introduce our presenter. Scott Uhrig is the Emergency Stabilization and Rehabilitation Program Supervisor for the BLM Twin Falls District Office in Idaho. Scott was the recipient of the Director's Spirit of Service Award for creating high-quality ES&R plans after fire events. He also works with the Department of Agriculture and local counties to administer weed control contracts throughout the large district, where he devotes time to assisting with national and local seed buys for the Emergency Stabilization and Rehabilitation Program. Scott is filling in for Paul Krabacher, who accepted a detail position in Alaska that started this week. Welcome, Scott, and thank you for being here today.
Well, thanks for having me, and good afternoon or morning or wherever you're at, everybody. I'll do what I can. Again, this is Paul's presentation, but I'm pretty familiar with most of it. I don't know who's out there, but there are some experts out there that know a lot more about it than I do. So anyhow, they can correct me later. But we'll go forward with it if we're ready.
Yep.
Okay, there's the objectives, the procurement specs, historic seed buys, role of SI seed, and then furthering strategic source procurement. Here's a picture of the Boise Regional Seed Warehouse. The interior and the whole objective with purchasing the seed and the specs is to have enough seed in the warehouse system between Boise and Ely to satisfy all our needs. So if you haven't had the chance to visit these warehouses, I'd encourage you to if you have the opportunity. Part of the specs, and there's our specs are, depending on the buy, are 40, 45 pages deep. But a few of the things that are really important in the specs is the noxious weeds, all noxious weeds, all western states noxious weeds. And even though at times we buy seed locally, for an example, through the Twin Falls District, that we know is going out on a project here, we'll ask for an all western states noxious weed test, but more importantly, we just care about the noxious weeds in Idaho. The noxious in New Mexico and Nevada don't necessarily affect what's going to be planted here. But all seed is recognized by the state noxious weed requirements administered of the Federal Seed Act. As you can tell, there's a lot of states listed, but we primarily care about the seed laws of the western BLM states. There are a couple of different kinds of noxious weeds that we are concerned about, just prohibited and the restricted. Prohibited, just period, it affects, if there's a prohibited noxious weed through the seed test, it is automatically rejected, period, in the conversation. Restricted weeds, it depends on the state and the number. For an example, Russian thistle, 5 per pound is okay. We would accept the seed because in Arizona you can have up to 30 Russian thistle seeds per pound. And so there is a difference. There's 2 different lists, the prohibited and the restricted. And again, it's based on the state that you are having it tested for. Again, there we go, the no prohibited noxious weed seeds. We do say that it has to be less than 5% of weed seed for all types of seed. Other crop, 2% except for thick spike and the tritana. And then obviously no seed mixes. We don't want a combination of seed. We want what we've asked for. This is something that's fairly new that we've asked for years, and especially in some of the other states. But through our test, the annual brome, we've had tests that there's thousands of seeds per pound, and part of our objective out when we're out doing restoration type project is we're fighting the cheatgrass out there, but then again in our seed mix we're planting thousands of pounds, and a lot of this came about. Some of the counterparts that I worked with, some of our good neighbors down in Ely, Erica and others have really brought this to everybody's attention, and I think it's something that we're going in the right directions with. BLM has our seed buys. We do have a minimum PLS rating, and this is what he's alluding to here, what Paul is alluding to. And this is something that we, over the years, have came up with, and it is the minimums that we ask for. As you can tell here, the top one, Western Yarrow, we do have minimum specs that it has to be 81% pure life seed or higher. And let's see, we buy seed ranked on a best value on PLS, which is the far right column, but then we buy it bulk. Yeah, and there's pros and cons whether it ought to be purchased by PLS or by bulk, and I personally just for myself, I like to buy it on bulk pounds. But at the seed buys, it is rated on PLS. And then this slide is test results. So that if a test comes back and it is below our minimum PLS, we do send in a second test, or it is an option to send in a second test, and then we average the 2 tests and then pay based off it. And in the specs, there is actually, if it's way below tolerance, we have tolerance points, but if it's way outside the specs, we have the options to reject or pay reduced price, depending on the needs. But then there's erroneous tests. Folks that are involved with big seed buys or seed buys understand this. It's probably something that could be discussed at a later time, or talking to the folks in Ely or the Boise Regional Seed Warehouses. So this is kind of a tree that I guess that you can look at, and I did talk to Jeannie, and this webinar is going to be posted so you can look at this. It's just a tree that Paul has put together that shows kind of a tracking purpose on our blue tags, our selected class seeds. But anyhow, you can take some time and look at that later, and if you have questions, please let us know. So this slide it just shows the amount of certified versus uncertified seed that we have purchased since 2009 to current. As you can tell, there's only 1%, approximately 1% of the seed is uncertified seed. We do our best to try to buy certified seed. Obviously, when we purchase it, we want what we order, and the certified system does a better job of assuring that. This slide is, if it's uncertified, part of the submission process, and it just helps us, it lets us know exactly where the seed comes from. It's a very good tool that we get from the vendors, and especially for wildland collected and cultivated species. Again, here's another slide that we use for that comes from the collectors themselves, that they state where they collected the seed, and you know, there's been a lot of pros and cons on that, whether the seed did come from there. But on Paul's notes, he said, read the small print below that it's fraud if they make a false statement. This is something that we do require. In our specifications, you know, there's the requirements of the individual species, the lat long, obviously elevation states, the transfer zones. And part of this is we try to plant as native seed source as we can. If there's seed that's collected in Idaho and we're planting it in Idaho, we'll do everything we can to get this seed. If it's a southern, if it's Utah seed or southern Utah seed, and Erica's doing a project down in Ely, then obviously she would like its native and local seed source, and depending on whose needs are where. This one is just source identification, certification, and the origin of claim specification. And again, that's just trying to get as native and local sources we can possibly get for the desired project. And this is also just to follow up on that, and that when we go to the buys, we get a lot of this information, but the far right-hand corner there kind of tells us on this species, on the 12 mallow species, where the origin of the seed came from. And then as we are buying and trying to match it up with projects, it's just a tool that we are able to use, another one of the tools. Specifications on the imported seed, the packaging and inspection. It's a very important tool in our specifications of what we allow and don't allow. And sometimes it depends on where the seed is being shipped to, which warehouse. If it's being shipped directly to Elko, to Jim Harmony, Tom Warren, or here to Twin, or wherever it's going, there can be some different packaging options, but that is part of the specifications. For an example here, this is some seed that has showed up to, I believe that showed up to the Boise Regional Seed Warehouse, and there are specs because of the system that they have there, the rack system. Well, this was stacked way too high, and I believe that they rejected the seed based on that, or the vendor had to have somebody come in and restack the seed. The folks at the warehouses are extremely busy, and vendors don't meet the specs, then we have that option to reject. Here's just a slide that shows seed that came in, and it's laying on the floor, and you know, we feel for the truck drivers that deliver the seed, but again, this is one of them that we reject the seed, and they have to make arrangements to restack the seed and shrink wrap it and do a better job of the delivery. And you hate to kick the truck driver out, but ultimately it falls back on the vendor. Here again, now the one that was actually, for the most part is shipped fairly well. It's, it's wrapped in cardboard, but because of the specs of the pallet size, you can see how the seeds kind of come off. This particular pallet, there was a hole in the bags, and we call them bleeders. So there's seed that's just kind of leaves the path when you load and unload the seed. So this is one that we potentially would tear down and inspect, and potentially even reject some of it. Evaluation process. We do get together, or we used to. Now it's a little different direction, but the evaluation, the TPEC process, once the vendors make their offer, there's a group of folks that get together and look at the seed that's being offered, part of its price, part of its past performance, and best value. Obviously, we try to match it up to the site specific where it's going, and then we do the award. We're not always having to go low price. Sometimes we do, because of price, we're able to use substitutes and try to match things up the best that we can, and location is a big part of that. This is a tray that some folks use. I know the Regional Seed Warehouse in Boise uses this. I don't know if Eric Livermore uses this down in Ely, or he has his own tool. But this is kind of a tree here that they use that kind of talks about the scenarios on seed acceptance from delivery to the final and actually paying the vendor. But it's a pretty interesting tool. We don't necessarily use this exact tool in the Twin Falls District. We have our own system, but this is a good one, and whatever works, so you make sure you hit all the steps in the process. Everybody has their own way. Part of the tool on the inspection and acceptance is obviously the initial inspection. Per the slides earlier, when the seed's falling over in the trucks or it's too high, seed quality, weeds, testing, lab test, all seed that we do get is tested, and we determine pure live seed, and that's how we make acceptance or rejected seed, and obviously make the payments. And again, there's a lot that goes into specs on acceptance and payments, and this is all part of it right here. And the bottom line is, we like our seed timely, and we like to make payments as soon as it's been accepted, invoiced, and we can make the payments. Part of the specs is the seed bid schedule, the area of origin and analysis forms that go along with it. Criteria and all of the what we're asking for. Obviously, the technical capacity, but price, and a lot of times more, and most importantly, is the past performance. We try to do a good job of documenting what has happened in the past, and try to weed out some of the vendors that have created problems in the past. And not necessarily just the vendor itself, but maybe with just some of the species. But we all have our, so to speak, favorites, and there are vendors that can supply a better seed in some species versus others. So we try to weed all that out. And again, this is part of a new process that I'm not really familiar with, and there are some folks out there that are. But it's some new procurement with some grass grow outs where they're it's something that we have. We're trying a new system of growing out some of the species that you can see here in fields that we are familiar with. So, but here they are, and And again, that Derek and Rico at the Regional Seed Warehouse could sure answer your questions on part of this. I'm not real familiar with the grow out process right now. Part of the process here, you know, based on their field production. Okay. BLM Seed Warehouse system, a couple pictures here of upper right, Boise, lower to the left is Ely, and then a picture of the Ely Seed Warehouse. I did visit the Ely Seed Warehouse here a month ago. Eric Livermore, who is the manager there, toured me of the facility. They have a really nice facility there, and he's very fortunate. He's got a couple folks there locally that have a lot of seed experience, not just in the Ely area, but Bureau-wide, western states. Erica and Laura are truly an asset to seed purchase specs and what's going on in the warehouse system. And then in the Boise warehouse, Rico and Derek and staff have been around a while and do a fantastic job, and fortunate to have Cindy Fritz and Rob and folks right there that are there to assist, and obviously makes it all work. Kind of showing here locations: Boise, Ely, Twin Falls has kind of been brought on as a satellite warehouse now. We don't hold it in when I say Twin Falls, it's located in Shoshone. We're able to probably have around 200 to 300,000 pounds of seed. Just a few varieties. It's not a full-blown warehouse like Boise, Ely. We do work with Ephraim a little bit, and again, I'm not sure what their role is. It is kind of a part of the system, and Paul has here, it's just policy, but how much they're involved, I really don't know. Ely Warehouse, you know, it's just up and going now. They do have, this is their mixing system that they have. They really have a nice mixing system, and we look for their capability to mix a lot of seed in the future versus Boise's right now. Boise has a smaller one. They do mix a lot of seed in Boise, and I think it would be nice in the future for them to be able to get set up to be able to mix maybe more seed per day than what they're able to do right now. So I think they're on the right track. Here's just a slide that from '96 to present on the seed that we've purchased, native and non-native, over the years. And what we're trying to be able to do is, you can see the peak years, the big fire years, 99, 2000, 2001. It looks like it comes in groups of 3. And the whole objective here is, you know, we average about 2.3 million pounds per year, and we'd like to be able to gear the warehouse system up to meet the needs of the big years, try to fill it up in the smaller years, but try to hit that happy medium. And we will see on some slides coming up, it's, you know, it's like everything, you know, when there's a demand, the prices are higher, but we're trying to level out that playing field somewhat. And we've been working on this for years. A number of us have been working on this for years, and I'm not sure what direction this will go. You know, Paul taking this job back in Alaska, you know, and there's a lot of folks out there that have ideas, and we'll see which direction this goes. But ultimately, we'd like to be able to just stock the warehouse full of those varieties that are used in peak years. This buy here, for an example, it was a 2012 buy, number 3. They purchased 143 species, which is a lot. 2.6, 2.79 million pounds of seed awarded, 301 different lots of seed, and approximately $25 million. And it was, as far as dollar-wise, one of the bigger buys, if not the biggest buy that we've had. And 2.5 million pounds of seed on 2.68 million pounds of seed at one buy is a lot of seed, and it keeps a lot of people busy, warehouses and field offices for quite some time. But this buy here was a buy for fall projects, and we have a pretty short window to get seed bought and put in the ground. This kind of shows the buys here and the price, how it peaks, and it's supply and demand. Obviously, when demand's high, the seed prices are a little higher, and versus the off season when we're able to stock up when it's not a big fire season, and the vendors do all they can to help level out the price. But again, it's just the way life is. Supply and demand drives prices up. But this is a pretty interesting slide, and one that we are trying with the warehouse systems, trying to level out that price. This slide's a very interesting slide here, but it kind of shows, back to 1996, the native versus non-native and the direction that we're going. And there is a need, or at least my opinion, there's a need for places for introduced non-native type seeds versus the natives, but we've gone in the right correct direction in putting as much native out there as we can. And obviously, it's seed that if we're going to plant it, then the investment is to get it to grow, to fight the annuals and the notches that are coming in. But we're doing a better job of getting the right seed out on the ground. Source identified seed. This is a tag. I'm not exactly sure, what's here, but it's part of the SI seed is to get the right seed in the right place. And the seed zone. You can look at this tag later, but it gives us the seed zone and exactly where it came from. Elmore County in Idaho's in my backyard, and obviously this Mountain Sage would be a good seed for Twin Falls District, Boise District, and something that's in our backyard, and that's what we're trying to do, is match up these seeds with the projects. Just a slide here, some project work. This is apparently an aerial seeding chaining. I'm not sure where this was at. Could have been Boise, Ely. But again, 95% of all the seed that goes through the warehouse system is ES&R and Fuels seed. And, obviously, with ES&R seed, when we burn, we try to implement projects that fall. Fuels, we are a little further ahead in the game, and we can plan them projects a little better. But sometimes when you have the big fire year, it gets shifted to ESR. Kind of a neat slide here anyway. Some of these next slides are very interesting slides. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to talk about with these, but you can take a look at them, and they are interesting, and kind of shows the direction or the amount of seed, the native seed that was able to buy since 2009. Kind of the same slide here. Again, very interesting slides, and what's being purchased through the consolidated seed buy. Okay. Again, if you have questions on these at a later date, feel free to let us know, or you can ask me, or I'll just send you to Rico, Derek, and Derek, or somebody else. I'm pretty good at forwarding on emails or phone calls. Again, this is flow chart that they use through the warehouse system. You can look at that. And the bottom line is getting the seed procured, and at the top and at the bottom is making payments. Here's one I know absolutely nothing about, but we can go through these slides. But it's the bottom line is, and I think we did have a webinar that I was not part of, I believe last week. But you know, now they're one of them tools of trying to get the right seed at the right place, and you know, it's only makes sense to collect seed and plant it as close to where it was collected as possible. Kind of the same thing here, the species, the counties of where it came from, and really this is nothing. You know, I've been involved in this process of buying plant and seed for years, and a lot of my counterparts, it's something that we have been doing for years, and we know somewhat know the industry and where the seed comes from, but I think this is just a better tracking tool up here that maybe they came up with. Again, this is just another Sagebrush Seed Buy of 2013, and it just shows the amount of pounds, the vendors that was awarded the seed, and you know, came from 6 different zones, 14 counties, 5 states. Again, it's just a tool to match up the seed for the project. A tag that's just part of that process. And again, here's the zones that we use to try to match it up. Same thing here. Again, just another one of them tools. Bottom line is to integrate species that are, you know, we're developing more and more and trying to get in the right zone. It only makes sense. The bottom line is we spend a lot of money in seed. It's probably the #1 for the ES&R and Fuels projects. We spend more money on seed than anything else, and we like results. None of us, or none of my counterparts, we don't like failure, and so we try to do the right thing for the right project. And Mother Nature has a lot to say about it once we put it in the ground, but if we can match up the species for the zones, that's the whole objective there. And I guess in conclusion, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions that can be directed to a lot of folks, but the warehouse system with Ely on board and with a lot of the folks out there, my counterparts that have been buying seed for a long time, you know, we're going to try to use the warehouse systems the best that we can, and use our past experience of seed buys and where we're looking at in the future, and the role of all the seed that's becoming available to us. Try to be ahead of the game as much as we can. So that's the slideshow. Hopefully there's no questions out there. This might have to refer them to somebody else anyway.
All right, thanks, Scott. So yes, if you have, if there are any questions from the attendees, please type them into your questions pane, and I'll read them out to Scott. So the first question is from Sarah Lovetang. Looking at the stacks of bags of seed in the BLM seed warehouses, don't the seed at the bottom of the stacks get crushed and possibly ruined from the weight of the bags above? Do you test viability of the seed at the bottom of the stacks after you accept the seed from the vendor?
Well, when we test seed, there are the right way, wrong way to test seed, and anybody that's testing the seed has been to training or a certified tester. But you take random samples, not just from the top, but from the bottom at different parts of the pallet, and it's a concern. But we do a visual inspection of the seed also, and history has showed us that the stacking of seed does affect the seed towards the bottom. So, good question.
Great, thanks. Okay, I'll wait a little bit to see if more questions come in. And I have a question. So it seems like in dry years, where we might have, well, I'm not sure if in drier years when we'd have more fires, there'd be more demand. But because of the dry years, like, do these warm winters affect at all, like, your seed quality and quantity, or not?
Yeah, obviously it does, and especially on the wildland collected, in our history. I'll just say sagebrush for an example. On low moisture years, the sagebrush doesn't produce as much seed. A couple of years ago, when there was a big demand, when we burned a lot of acres bureau-wide, and there was a need for sagebrush, it just wasn't available. The seed that was offered was still good quality seed just because of the testing process, but what we had to do is sit down as states and as districts and field offices is determine what was priority for the seed. And the thing about the BLM and the seed industry is myself and my counterparts is we try to do what's best for the land, and it doesn't matter whether it's in Twin Falls District or if it's in Battle Mountain or Ely or Elko. We try to make the best decisions on where the seed ought to go, and sometimes you give up seed for a higher priority. And we're a pretty close family, I'll say, of my partners out there, the partnerships and the relationships that we have, and we try to do what's best for everybody.
Great, thanks. Okay, there's a question from Steve Popovich who asks, what is the status of renewing seed BLM IDIQ, and do you know if the Forest Service will be rolled into a part of that?
Hi, Steve Popovich. I know Steve Popovich. He worked in the Twin Falls District for years. Steve. Yeah, there is. We do through inventory. Part of that is to replenish, get rid of the old, bring in the new, and it's something that the folks at the warehouses do a really good job of. And turnover of seed, we don't seem to have a problem of being able to do that, because we burn. Idaho may not burn. We didn't have a big fire year last year, but Oregon did, and so seed does get turned over, and we do take a good look at history of seed. We do that here in Twin Falls with the seed that we do use, and we try not to inventory seeds that aren't used that often. But it is a concern to try to get seed turned over. We do know the seeds that can store longer than others, and we try to keep that in mind when we're buying seed, and work real close with the industry on what we project we're going to use, and we work real close with the experts like yourself, Steve, and others that what direction are we looking to go, and try to get out ahead of that and work with the industry on what our needs are. And again, I'm not sure what direction Paul had been going, but I think we have that we all have that same objective.
And if I missed it, apologies. But what about? Do you know if the Forest Service is going to be rolled into part of that?
I believe they are. Again, I don't know that for sure, but I believe that we're trying to. We've been working on an MOU to include everybody. A fire goes through it. It really doesn't matter whether it's BLM, Forest Service, state, Fish and Wildlife. We need to treat the land, and so I think I do believe Forest Service is going to be part of this. They do have their own buying system, and it seems like they're able to get seed sometimes faster than we're able to get it. But I think look, the objective is to get everybody on the same page and work together instead of against each other.
Mm-hmm. Great. And Steve said hi, Scott, and he's doing good things in Colorado.
Good. I know he is.
All right. Weston Miller asks, how do we officially buy seed from the warehouse? Is there a price list that gets updated? Where can I get this form?
Yep, there is. There's a website there, and we can post it. But there's a form there, or phone numbers, and again, Derek and Rico in Boise and staff can answer a lot of the questions, and Eric Livermore in Ely can answer your questions. But they are they can update you on what's available. It's just like going to a grocery store. It changes daily, but they try to update their inventory as often as they can with prices, and there's been some talk about how to try to keep up with that system. But my suggestion would be to notify them directly at the warehouse and get their form that you do fill out for seed needs.
Great, thank you. Ronald Stevenson asks, do you feel there is a good cooperative relationship between the BLM and seed vendors, or could it be improved?
Well, you're putting me on the spot. We've had, and I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but I've been a part of seed and seed buys and for a long time. I'll say 30 years, and real heavy into it for the last 26 years. And Twin Falls is a big player. We burn a lot of acres, and we go through a lot of seed. And I've had a great rapport with my counterparts in the seed industry for years. Paul came in, and it kind of went in a little bit different direction. It was more handled through him and directly through the warehouse system. So we was kind of out of the loop a little bit, and lately, and we kind of voiced our opinion on that, and decisions were made, and we went forward. And sometimes you just communication's a big tool, and the direction it'll go now that Paul's left, I don't know. Kind of missed that rapport with the industry and knowing what's out there, and so we'll see what direction it goes. But I'd like to see more interaction with the industry and the players in the field.
Great, thanks. And then as a follow-up, to Steve's earlier question, he asked who is the contact to inquire further on this, and I believe that must have been about the Forest Service being rolled into the process.
Yeah, and I don't know right now. I don't have the answer to that, but maybe Derek or Rico at the Boise Regional Seed Warehouse would maybe know more. They're pretty involved. They've been real involved with Paul and the process, so maybe they could answer it. If they can't, I could probably get the answer for you, Steve. You maybe follow up with me if you don't get an answer.
Okay, great. That looks like the last question. So we would greatly appreciate it if you would take our 3-question survey of this webinar that will appear after the webinar has ended. And I want to let you know that a recording of this webinar will be sent to you automatically through the GoToWebinar system tomorrow, but I will also post it along with the PowerPoint presentation on the Great Basin Fire Science Exchange website. I'll try to get that done by the end of the week before I go to Boise for a week, so I'll do my best to do that. But it will be posted within the next couple of weeks. Our 4th webinar in this series, Seed Purchase Instruments and IDIQ, presented by Doug Kendig, will take place on Tuesday the 24th, if you're interested. And if you have more questions regarding this webinar or questions for Scott, please feel free to email myself or Scott. And if you have requests for future webinars, please email or call me anytime. thank you all for your participation today, and thank you, Scott, so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
All right, have a great day, everybody.